to order this evening's meeting of the City Council. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mayor Brinkman.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Valdez.
Present.
Councilmember Cole.
Here.
Councilmember Driscoll.
Here.
Councilmember Elrod.
Here.
Councilmember Fay.
Here.
Councilmember Schlachter.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to thank everybody for allowing us a little late start today. The council had a training prior to this and it went a little long, so that's why we were not promptly here at 6:30, but now we are here. So council, is there any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. This is now opportunity for public comment. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. The council is not authorized by the Colorado open meetings law to discuss, comment, or take action at the meeting on any issue raised by public comment that is not part of tonight's agenda. We may refer the matter to staff to obtain additional information and report back. We do have a couple public hearings this evening, so if you are here to speak to either of those, we ask that you please speak during the public hearings so that we can get your comments for those on the record. We have 2 people signed up to speak in public comment. Joseph Trujillo.
Good evening, Council. My name is Joseph Trujillo, 5574 South Huron Street, District 2. In December of 2014, the city and Lyft entered into a loan agreement not to exceed $200,000. In addition to the loan, the agreement set out provisions for the return of unused sales tax increment. The agreement states that any collected tax revenues not necessary or used to pay obligations of Lyft during the current fiscal year shall be returned to the city by the end of the first calendar quarter following such fiscal year. Last week, the city gave Lyft a check for $102,000 in sales tax increment from the Columbine Square urban renewal area. This is not the first check given to Lyft for the sales tax increment. Currently, Lyft has deposited all sales tax increments from the Littleton Boulevard Urban Renewal, North Broadway Urban Renewal Area, Columbine Square Urban, into their bank account where it sits earning interest. There are thousands of dollars of increments sitting in their bank account, and the terms of their agreement with the taxpayers of Littleton have not been honored by either Lyft or the city. As a taxpayer, I am asking you to do what was promised by the loan agreement. To date, Lyft has not returned a single penny of sales tax increment as they agreed to do in December 2014, nor has the City Council insisted that the terms of the agreement be held as agreed upon. It is a long past time that the agreement be honored. The first quarter of 2019 has come and gone without any payback to the city. Why should any future agreement by council be taken seriously when the terms of this one are ignored? For those that don't know what entails with Lyft, these are funds that are coming from the county, South Suburban, urban drainage, and the school districts. So you're taking money from all those people. And for one, I'm just madder than hell that something hasn't been done on this. We went through this on Riverfront. We lost $10 million there. I do not even see the usefulness of Lyft anymore. It seems to me as though I'm looking at The Walking Dead up here when you turn around, send the money back into an organization that has no project online, nothing going. That is not right, folks. So I'm just letting you know.
Thank you, Jose. Pam Chadbourne?
My name is Pam Chapborn. I live a block and a half from here, and actually I'll agree with Joe. It's outrageous that this hasn't been honored, and the city should demand the payment because you honor us when you do that. You represent us, you've made an agreement on our behalf, and it is your duty, your obligation to serve the people and get this money back from Lyft. It's not something that you can interpret. This agreement was made. You made it on our behalf. The body did. The body did. And actually, so I should go to my theme for tonight, which is, Council, I think you've been misdirected. And that's because you're turning to what other cities are doing. Let's copy that. What are developers, certain developers, telling us what we have to do or we'll miss out? Actually, that is pretty irrelevant to a good city. You know who you should care about is the councils who came before you, the citizens who came before you. You inherit a legacy that is made by hundreds, actually thousands of people over decades. And they fought as hard as many of us have fought for issues. And that is so precious and valuable, and I want that to be real and present when we come to these meetings. I don't feel it anymore. And we should have a sense of the people in the future who we're protecting this legacy and handing it to. What are we giving them? Are we giving something better than we received? Or are we giving something that's been degraded and made average and mediocre? I think that's the future land use map. The one right now that says downtown should be urban, Littleton Boulevard is let's do anything just like Santa Fe and Broadway. That's utterly foolish and destructive of the legacy that we inherited. Kendrick Keys came to us with a category for conservation or preservation, and that's what that's what the downtown and the Littleton Boulevard should be. And in that way, you protect the legacy that we've received. And then we have time to talk about it after the passage of this. So I had other things to talk about. South Metro Housing Options is talking about selling 71 properties. I would like you to get engaged with that. It makes no sense to sell 71. The cut is not until next year. It's just maintenance. Maybe it makes sense to sell the 20 that are in worse shape. But integration of income and integration of ethnicities is a value in a city. So again, look to our past, look to our future, engage with SMHO, and tell them not to sell these properties this year. Englewood is not, Sheridan is not.
Pam.
Let's not.
Thank you. And there's no one else signed up. Is there anyone who would like to address council? Paul?
Good evening, Council. Paul Bingham, 236 West Delaware Circle. I've got a whole lot to say about Lyft. I've gone to 98% of their meetings for the last years through all the nonsense. I'm not going to recite all this to you. I'm simply going to say I agree with Jose and Pam. We, being you guys, as our representative, need to live up to that agreement and get on with it. And what I'd really like you folks to do is come to our senses collectively and get rid of Lyft. It's the most worthless organization we've got in this town. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Anybody else? Seeing no one, I will close the public comment and we'll move to consent agenda. Consent agenda items can be adopted by a simple motion. All ordinances must be read by the title prior to the vote, and any consent agenda item may be removed at the request of a council member. ID 19200 is a motion setting the date of August 20th, 2019 for consideration of the River Park Metropolitan District Service Plan. Resolution 31, 2019 is a resolution approving the appointment of 2 new board members to the Aspen Grove Business Improvement District. Resolution 34, 2019 is a resolution approving the 5th Amendment to the agreement for RTD funding for the Littleton shopping cart. And ID 193 is approval of the July 2nd, 2019 regular meeting minutes. I need a motion, please.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve consent agenda items A, B, C, and D.
Okay. Second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second from Councilmember Valdez. Ready to vote?
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
Okay. We have no items under general business, so we'll move to our second readings and public hearings. First is Ordinance 11 of 2019. This is the second introduction of an ordinance amending the wastewater utility ordinance regarding the industrial pretreatment program. And I believe Blair Corning is here to make the presentation.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, council members. Thanks for your time tonight. I'm here tonight to talk to you about local limits. We talked to you at a study session in February, and so I'm back to ask for approval of an ordinance to amend our local limits. I'll give you a little refresher on what local limits are and what they do, and then I'll let you ask any questions that you might have. So local limits are limits on the amount of metals and toxics that industries can discharge to the South Platte Water Renewal Partners wastewater plant. We have limits on them to make sure we don't violate our own discharge permit limits. They're required every time the plant gets a new permit. They're required every time a plant gets a new permit. Our permit was issued at the end of 2017, so these have been in the works since then and are a result of that permit reissuance by the CDPHE. EPA requires them to be based on data, so it's really a spreadsheet exercise in crunching numbers, and we'll get into that in a couple slides, but there's not a lot of room for interpretation. It's just a spreadsheet exercise based on plant-specific treatment, treatment efficiencies and what industries are in the service area. Sorry, I forgot to advance this. So what local limits do, they're there to protect worker safety. We have operators, maintenance folks at the plant, and we're protecting them from discharges of toxics and hazardous substances that could affect their health and well-being. They also protect the treatment facility piping and facilities from high pH or different corrosives or contaminants that can hurt the plant. They protect the plant from pass-through. The plant can only handle so much as far as metals loading or loading of certain substances, and excess of that goes right out the end in our discharge. So we've got to make sure we don't have excess. We can treat what we get, and so that's what these limits are designed to do. They also protect the plant biological processes. As you know, a wastewater plant is biology and microbiology that treats the sewage, so we don't want to have anything come in that'll wipe out that biological population, and we won't get treatment at the plant. Local limits also protect the receiving stream, which is the South Platte River, and they protect our biosolids against high concentrations of metals so that we're allowed to apply them for soil amendment on farms. So kind of how we do this, how we make the sausage, so to speak. We collect sample data. We've been doing it for 5 years, and we take that from industries all in our service area. We take a look at the domestic discharge coming from homes, and we see what comes in the front of the plant, what we can treat, what goes out the back of the plant, establishing a removal efficiency, and then look at our biosolids. So we crunch those numbers in a spreadsheet that the EPA issues and a methodology that they prescribe, and we come up with the new local limits table that I'll show you in a minute here. Another thing we consider in the process is the most restrictive limits. So some of these changed, they're changing each time you do them because either stream standards have become more strict or there's a different regulation, either drinking water, takes precedence over aquatic life or what have you. So they're always changing, and you'll never find them, or you probably won't find them the same at two different facilities because they're really facility specific based on all the conditions of that plant. So this is just a comparison of the 2009 calculated limits and the 2019 calculated limits. Some have went up slightly, some have gone down slightly. We have done outreach to all the industries that we have permits with to notify them of these changes and to make sure that it's not going to cause big issues when we put these in the new permits. Kind of the progress, like I said, we developed these using the methodology that the EPA prescribes. There are spreadsheets, and then we've worked with them throughout this whole process, which has been a year-long process to come up with these. These have been reviewed and accepted by the EPA, and if you remember, the EPA had to do a 30-day posting of these and to receive public comment. They did that posting, and we've heard back that they have given final approval because they didn't receive comments from the public or any industries regarding these new local limits. So where we're at now, just kind of a timeline of where we've been. Littleton approved the first reading back in February. You remember it took a while because of the EPA hiatus or furlough, and then the advertising period. Inglewood has just approved the second reading of these local limits last night at their council meeting. EPA has given approval based on not receiving any comments and their review of the local limits. So if these are approved tonight, the next step would be we implement these into the permits of the facilities that we permit from the plant. So I think that's all I had, but I'd be happy to answer any questions or concerns.
Council, any questions? Councilmember Schlechter.
Yeah, one quick question. On the proposed local limits, what's the rationale for allowing some of those limits to, go up, double or quadruple?
Yeah, it's usually either a change in our, like I say, there's all those combination of factors. So it could be a change in our plan efficiency. Maybe we can take more out due to a different process at the plant, or maybe it's a change in the water quality standards in the river. So really that's why they fluctuate either, or maybe we're getting less from the industries, so the limit can be raised because we have more capacity to handle that at the plant. So it could be a number of factors that would cause it to go up.
So because we're getting less, we can allow more to go back out? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me here.
Yeah, these limits are the max, but yeah, I guess that would be the case if we have less coming in the plant. So if we have, if our plant's capable of treating so much copper from the front to the back, there's so much in residential wastewater, and then the other portion is allocated to the industries in the service area. So I guess technically if we had less coming in from the residential source, more could be allocated to the industries.
So this is just specific to industries then, or?
Yeah, these local limits are just specific to industries, right? And they're permitted industries too, so it's just the industries that we have permits with that we say, hey, you can't discharge more than this amount because that'll get us in trouble on our discharge permit.
I see.
Other questions? Councilmember Elrod?
Are there any of the industries that do have a permit that, while may not have expressed a concern, is an industry that you may be looking at a little bit more closely because they're right on the border? How often are the permits renewed? Because I presume that would be when you kind of check if they're still in compliance or not.
Yeah, well, we continuously check. The industries are doing self-monitoring on a certain schedule, usually quarterly, and then we'll do monitoring as well to verify that. So we're continually looking at their discharge to make sure it doesn't go over the local limits. A lot of these industries that we're talking about have pre-treatment systems in place, so they treat the wastewater before it ever comes to us. So because of that, I think the effect is, from what we've seen in our outreach to industries, is that there's not the potential for a big effect on the industries.
Other questions? Councilmember Valdez?
So with the use of food wagons increased quite a bit, I think, over the last few years, have you had an increase in grease or anything like that being dumped into the sewer system?
We monitor sand and grease interceptors in the system from usually stationary restaurants. So I guess I couldn't answer that. That'd be a question for the collection utilities department and the collections crew who jets the lines, and it depends on where. I would hope that these food trucks are discharging into a approved interceptor or location with an interceptor, which will catch that grease, and then they suck it out in a truck. If they don't, then it would find its way to us, but we haven't seen an uptick in grease or oil at the plant.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is a public hearing. I will open the public hearing at 7:02, and I don't have anybody signed up to speak. Is anybody interested in speaking on this topic? Okay, seeing no one, I will close the public hearing, 7:02. Council, any additional questions or comments? Okay, I need a motion, please.
Mayor? I move to approve the ordinance on second reading, amending the wastewater utility ordinance regarding the industrial pre-treatment program.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ready to vote?
Yep.
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Blair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Blair.
Okay, our next ordinance is Ordinance 20 of 2019. This is the second introduction of an ordinance approving an equipment lease agreement with Wells Fargo through Luan Technologies for print technology, software, and services. I believe we have a presentation by staff. Ashley, are you going to lead the presentation? Tiffany? Okay.
Thank you, Council. Tiffany is going to kick things off.
Mics are
That's why we
really,
don't let you use that thing.
mics are really loud tonight.
All the better you can hear us with, right? Good evening, Council. Before you, you have Ordinance 20-2019. It's related to an equipment lease agreement. And I think before I dive into the presentation, I'm going to turn it over to Ashley, and she's going to kind of give you a little overview of what we're doing here. So
I'm just going to borrow yours. Thank you. I just wanted to give you a little background behind why we are here to discuss this lease agreement. When I first started, I talked with Randy and Mark about what my priorities for the department were going to be. And one of my main goals was to be able to support your goal of financial sustainability and making sure that IT could play their part in meeting that goal. I've targeted 3 areas, which coincidentally are also my PBB programs for this year, which we're choosing to highlight. Those are around software expense, telecom expense, and lastly, print expense. In that vein, I engaged a partner earlier this year to actually do a printer assessment across our city, where we went and inventoried all of the printers, scanners, faxes that we've got, as well as understood the usage around those, and have been working over the past several months to come up with a plan of how we could help reduce costs, improve efficiencies, and lower our carbon footprint all at the same time. Along those lines, we decided to propose partnering with Luan to actually take that on, and hence why we're here tonight.
So following up with that, the policy question you have before you is, does council support an equipment lease agreement with Wells Fargo through Luan Technology, leveraging the Sourcing Alliance Cooperative Agreement for print technology, software, and services?
Tiffany, if you don't mind, just a point of clarification for everybody. The reason council is even getting involved in the printing agreement is because it's a multi-year agreement, and that needs to be approved by council.
Exactly, yes. I did want to highlight that. Ordinarily, these decisions are at the administrative level. This is something we would do internally that doesn't always necessarily have to involve council. The one difference with this particular agreement is that we do have a requirement in our city code that any leases that extend beyond the current fiscal year are required to be approved by the city council. And so ultimately, the ask of council this evening is to allow us to have blanket authorization to enter into copier leases from here going forward with Luan Technology through the Sourcing Alliance Cooperative Agreement. So a little bit of summary, Ashley did allude to, we did a citywide assessment that was conducted on our copiers, printers, and fax machines. Through that, we developed a 3-year roadmap for print services. This included device consolidation, optimization, standardization, and overall efficiencies throughout the organization. We're able to do this through a cooperative agreement with Sourcing Alliance. Some of you may recall we have done this in the past with other services that we've provided throughout the city. And as I mentioned earlier, the approval is for the lease portion of the copiers moving forward. Some staff analysis is we feel like this, by centralizing the management of our print services, is going to streamline support and procurement related to printers and copiers and supplies related to those equipment throughout the organization by an economies of scale. Ashley did mention that this does support the financial sustainability goal of council. We want to ensure that we're providing ultimate pricing, optimal services through a partner with that. A little bit of fiscal impacts through the analysis that we conducted. It's estimated that we potentially can reduce costs by 25 to 45%. We did an assessment of desktop printers and copiers, and through consolidation of that, we could reduce that number potentially by 50% as well. This will create a more environmentally sustainable
You're talking, or?
I'm sorry?
Or use?
What's that?
Dollars or use?
So by actually reducing the number of copiers and putting in new procedures like around print governance, for example, so that we're basically printing our larger jobs only to our more highly efficient printers, we think we can reduce our existing costs of what we're spending on print today by those numbers.
Thank you.
And also, reducing energy consumption by limiting the number of devices that we have out there. And then also saving on toner expense, about a 42% decrease in toner. If you don't have that many printers, you're not buying replacement toner, and so you can consolidate the expenses related to that. Some alternatives, we ask that you approve this lease agreement to allow us to have efficiency and cost savings throughout the organization. If you don't approve this lease agreement, you could be foregoing efficiencies and cost savings that aren't implemented currently. Staff does recommend approval of this lease agreement. And if you have additional questions, Ashley and I are here to help.
Council questions? Councilmember Elrod?
Following up on Jerry's comments, so the fiscal impacts, the reduction in toner and other things, what do you have an absolute dollar range of a dollar amount of what that is, either on a yearly basis or over the 3-year period?
So that will require more analysis, just giving different account coding practices that each departments have been taking, given this is decentralized, is something that we're looking to actually consolidate and make clear to give better visibility going forward. So we can come back to you with what we're able to glean from what we do know, but again, knowing we don't have consistency given the decentralization right now, it's going to be hard to get an accurate number.
Okay, but you'll be able to come back to us with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Councilmember Driscoll?
Did this go out for bid? Did I miss that? Did I fall asleep when you said it went out for bid?
No, it did not. We have the ability to use a cooperative agreement. What that means is an organization has already gone out to bid for a number of services, and Luan was awarded the bid under that agreement. And so that's what we're able to use to solicit or to take advantage of the RFP or bid prices in that cooperative agreement. We use that for a number of other services and products that we purchase.
What's the line item budget for our equipment and leases? Do we have a yearly line item budget number?
We do, and I don't have a total number for you now, but what we're working on with Ashley and her team is to consolidate those so that we can understand fully. Currently, it's decentralized, and so some departments pay out of software maintenance or office supplies, and so we're really trying to consolidate that to truly understand the cost related to that.
Okay.
Councilmember Ortiz?
So regarding the bid, so tell me what we did again?
So it's a cooperative agreement, and outsourcing Alliance, sorry, I might have said that backwards. Sourcing Alliance actually goes out and solicits bids for certain services, and Luan was awarded a bid related to print services and equipment services. And I believe we provided that information to council, showing the process, and so you can understand the process that they went through and why they were awarded that.
And then when did Lawan submit their information?
For the RFP, I would have to look. I don't have the answer. I don't have the date exact.
We're talking within a year, or?
I don't have the answer to that. I'm sorry.
So it could be old information?
No, it has been within the last 6 months.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you. Okay, this is a public hearing, so I will open public comment at 7:12. We have 3 people signed up. Greg Pattison. Please state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Sure, Madam Mayor, members of the council, thank you. Greg Pattison, 2239 Jerosa Lane, Superior, Colorado. I represent your current approved vendor, Pacific Office Automation. In relation to approving ordinance 2029 tonight, this ordinance commits taxpayer funds to a corporate entity without the city's protection from the vendor. Should the city non-appropriate funds to pay the lease agreement, the city will still be held liable to Lawan and Associates for the remaining payments not passed through their organization outlined in the terms and conditions of the agreement, of the sales order agreement. Lawan's custom print terms and conditions state auto renewal for 1 year, thus forcing the city to incur the equipment costs for another year too, should you not give proper notice. The Sourcing Alliance agreement put together in Northeast Ohio does not reflect protections for the city either. Colorado has state-approved contracts in place that ensure the best value and those protections. You are currently on one now with us, Pacific Office Automation. In February, we learned from procurement that a new IT director, Ashley Bolton, had been hired in November 2018 and was seeking to implement additional benefits we had been actually recommending to prior leadership. Documented multiple attempts were made via calls to her desk, cell phone, emails, and regular site visits requesting an introduction. All attempts were met with no response by Ms. Bolton. On July 2nd, Deputy City Manager Mr. Young introduced himself to Joe Bazikovich, your current account manager for POA. Joe briefly shared his detailed file that he has and that Ms. Bolton had not replied to any attempt to meet. Mr. Young instructed him to email both he and Ms. Bolton to facilitate a meeting. On July 3rd, Joe sent the email. Becky Fye responded on behalf of Ms. Bolton, offering the 23rd of July after this hearing. A second attempt was made, and ultimately Ms. Bolton agreed to speak with us this past Friday. Both Joe and I spoke with her. She confirmed the following: her time invested in the project, that she had not engaged the city and council's approved vendor, Pacific Office Automation. She was unaware of our previous efforts to provide this solution, our history of cost savings for the city, and that we would not be given a chance to compete for this opportunity. So, and that she had researched only one provider here in Colorado. You heard her say that recently. Upon learning of our attendance at this opening hearing, she stated, "Your attendance in this matter is going to make Randy upset." At that point, we made our closing remarks and concluded the call. So the efforts to pass Ordinance 2029 by Ms. Bolton and Luan Technology through this council reflects a process to circumvent procuring the best value and protections for the city of Littleton.
You need to wrap it up.
Okay. So we ask that it not go forward.
Thank you. Next is Joe Bazikovich.
Can you spell your last name, please?
Barely. It's Boziko, V as in Victor, ICH. So, Madam Mayor, member of the council, I really appreciate you taking the time. I just wanted to take a minute and really just discuss the relationships that have been created within the city of Littleton over the last
Excuse me, could you just state Could you just state your name and address,
my
please,
apologies.
for the record?
Joe Bezikovich, 3703 South Fairplay Way. It's Aurora. So again, I wanted to just take a moment and discuss the relationships that have been created with the city of Littleton over the last 5 years. When I began working with the city, the relationship was directed through the financial department, specifically Ruth Brusky, and then as of 2017, her replacement, Chris Powell. We would address the different machines within the city one by one as they came up on lease. At that time, the finance team was in charge of all copier leases, and the IS team was responsible for desktop printers and the management of those devices. The topic of managed print services and print management was off limits until now. In my time, I've worked with Meredith at Bemis Library, Rachel within the municipal court, fire and rescue with Kathy, as well as the other Kathy in communications, public works with Lucy and Randy, and PD with Kim, and even IS themselves with Mark. I worked with each department head to determine the proper machine for their division within the city. In the process, we were able to determine and demonstrate different copier manufacturers to help determine the right machine for that given department. Each department has seen significant operational cost reductions along with more productive equipment. So we've seen almost a 30% overall cost in your print cost, as well as over 14% savings on equipment. So the process has recently changed within the city, and I'm here in front of the council to ask for the opportunity to keep these relationships intact. I'm asking to keep the technology contracts under a single master agreement with the PO system that we have created, and we've been working together over the last 5 years. We're excited about the direction the city wants to go with their vision and how they look and view print. We're just asking for the opportunity to demonstrate the solution that we have been trying to recommend over the years. At worst, I would ask my company to be afforded the professional courtesy as a current business partner to bid on the solution, excuse me, in a formal closed bid. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jeremy Gilman. State your name and address.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jeremy Gilman. I live at 11761 West Brant Avenue, Littleton, Colorado. As a resident of Littleton, Colorado for quite a number of years now, and an employee of Pacific Office Automation, I formally would like to go on record that I am against leveraging any agreement from another state specifically that does not provide the best value nor protects the city of Littleton or its taxpayers' dollars. It is my understanding that not only are agreements for multiple year leases and purchases over $10,000 need to go through a formal bidding process, and for that reason, I ask that for a no vote on this ordinance and a competitive bid process take place by Section 97 of the city or the city charter as supplement by City Ordinance 14, Series 1994. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. There's no one else signed up. Would anybody else like to speak? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing at 7:19. Council, any additional questions for staff?
I would like,
Councilmember Fay?
may we ask Ms. Bolton to give her perspective on this situation?
Thank you, Carol. I really appreciate that opportunity. I think some of the dates were very misleading. The first email contact I received from POA was actually on May 15th, despite me have starting 6 months earlier. Also, in regard to the meeting that was this past Friday, I think I was misrepresented as well. I am seeking, as part of this step forward, a true partner that can not only get us the best price, but truly deliver on that pledge of service and quality. In reaching out to some of our existing employees whom were referenced here, I did not get that same feedback. For example, talking with Lucy Lucero in Public Works, she detailed the many frustrations that she had with POA. In summary, she summed up to me, would I recommend POA to anyone else? No. Am I regretful that we entered into an agreement with POA? Yes. That was Lucy Lucero, who was represented again as an advocate of this relationship. In addition to that, with the 6 months that I have engaged with this with Luan, they have truly demonstrated that partnership to us. Every request that they have made, or that I've made of them, they have met 110%. In addition, they have even done things without an agreement to help us, knowing that we had a need. I can cite one example with our library, who actually was also represented by Joe. And a quote that I actually have, just based on an existing need that they have, was, this is in regard to an actual Xerox copier that Luan had presented to meet our library needs of, it was so helpful to see the Xerox display and how easy it is to use. Our patrons will be thrilled with the increased functionality. Xerox truly has some remarkable features that we will want to take advantage of. The fact that they are demonstrating basically the needs of our patrons and a partner that can truly take us where we need to be is something that I also value significantly, and again, why I'm looking for a partner that's truly proactive and wants to partner with us versus one that comes to the table 6 months late. Tiffany, I don't know if there's anything that you'd want to address around the cooperative agreements. Finance is not really my area, but.
Yeah, for the cooperative agreements, we do have the ability to utilize those. What those do is those eliminate the requirement for us to go out for an RFP individually, and the organization has already done that on our behalf. And so we're able to enter into that agreement to help limit the costs and the time related to doing an RFP. We did the same cooperative agreement with Canon, and we did the same cooperative agreement with a POA, Pacific Office, as well. And as I mentioned earlier, we've done it with some other services for the city. The comp plan was actually one of those, and the transportation master plan. And it's truly an excellent way for municipalities to get the best pricing through an RFP process without us having to do it internally and incur costs and time related to that. A number of municipalities use it throughout the state of Colorado and throughout the entire United States. It's more prevalent now because they see the need for municipalities to offer that service.
And Madam Mayor, if I may jump in here.
Sure.
If you look at the city's procurement and payment policy, it does reference the ability to utilize cooperative purchasing agreements. That is codified in the code in section 115.2 as well. And so just following up on what Tiffany said, there was also an allegation made in the public comment about the multi-year fiscal obligation nature of this agreement. And if the council would refer to the actual lease agreement with Wells Fargo that's in your packet, it quite clearly says in section 14 of that agreement that council can fail to appropriate funds anytime. This agreement will terminate and will be forced to return the equipment. And in addition to that, the governing law of that agreement is Colorado law. And as you know, under Tabor and the Colorado Constitution, we are prohibited from entering into multi-year fiscal obligations. So under both the terms of the agreement itself and also under state law, this is not a multi-year fiscal obligation.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay, council, I need a motion, please.
I move to approve the ordinance on second reading, approving an equipment lease agreement with Wells Fargo through Luan Technology.
Need a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are you ready to vote?
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you,
That
Council.
takes us to comments and reports. City manager,
No report, Mayor.
city attorney,
No report, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Elrod,
No report.
Councilmember Fay,
No report.
Councilmember Schlechter,
No report.
Whoa.
Mayor Pro Tem Valdez.
Yes.
You ruined it.
I do have a question to the city manager. A couple of the issues that came up from some citizens earlier where we talked about the lift and the payments, collection and payments back to the city. We had discussed that at a meeting some time ago, this year.
At the museum.
Yeah,
Correct,
it's a
Mayor
museum.
Pro Tem.
And we had talked about it, and they said they were waiting to get an attorney so that they could start looking at that and perhaps get the money to us that is owed according to the agreement. So where are we? Where are they on that?
We can respond in writing here in more detail. My recollection is that the actual loan is due here at the end of the year. And so there's been probably an extension at some point in time. So we're in full compliance with that agreement.
But they never paid us back from the previous years, though.
No, but there was an extension to that, is my recollection.
So have they have not hired their attorney?
I believe they have hired an attorney.
They
here.
have.
This is recent, very recent.
Okay, good.
Just
Yeah.
at the last meeting.
Okay.
I
Last
was
meeting,
there,
they
so.
just determined, okay, good. So hopefully things will get moving a little bit. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
we-
and for additional clarification, when we did meet with the Lift Board, the council did let them know that the loan is due at the end of the year, and that we gave them until October. I think we met with them in
Give them until September.
I thought it was
September. I think we meet with them in September, October. Anyway, I think we ended up, it was like 6 months that we gave them to come up with, what are you going to do? What is the Urban Renewal Authority going to do? What are your, what's the plan? So they have been mandated with that. They have discussed it at the meetings. I think they're putting together a bit of a work plan on that. And we will visit with them again in 3 months. And I think we were very clear that we expected to have something substantive in order to make a decision about whether to continue to support Lyft or collect the money. So that is the status.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, just briefly, the council's tentative calendar, the exact date has been set here for the joint meeting with Lyft, October, and forgive me, I don't remember the date, but you'll find it on your calendar.
And that'll be a regular or a study session?
It's a breakfast meeting, joint meeting.
Okay.
When is that?
Councilmember Driscoll?
Just a reminder, everybody's invited to the Littleton Business Chamber meeting on August 1st. That will be held at the Equestrian Center right there on C-470 and Santa Fe. So come on by. That starts at 5:30.
Littleton Equine Hospital.
Yep, there you go. Thank you.
Councilmember Cole?
Nothing except remind people that council has,
Vacation?
no, we have the
Meet and greet.
meet and greet at Puma Park
Tomorrow,
tomorrow afternoon.
4 to
So
6.
come and help keep the rain at bay and have a nice time and talk to council and staff.
All right. It's right there.
Thank you. No report. We're adjourned.
Hey.